Okay, so today we're gonna have a look at the BMW F650 and the F650gs Dakar, the maintenance schedule, specifically the 10,000 Ks. So this is just a list I got on Google. If you just type in F650gs checklist, maintenance checklist, you'll find it there, but I will have it down to the description. Okay, so first up, they've got the read the fault code memory with a BMW MoDiTeC. So I found this to be under the seat. It's not a normal connector like the OBD that you find on cars. It's proprietary to BMW, and that obviously means you'll have to pay a little bit extra. This is the GS911. They specifically have this for the F series and the single sparks and the twin spark models, and pricing on these are about $399, which is a little pricey. You could always do the $749, so $399 is probably not that bad, but I would recommend maybe getting a shop that has something like this. Maybe you can just pay them. They just charge you just to check the codes. I think in the long run that probably work out cheaper than paying $399. Okay, so next up, change the engine oil while at regular operating temperatures and replace the oil filter. Okay, so it's quite important to get your engine at operating temperature so that the viscosity of the oil is at a proper level. I would also recommend using some gloves because a hot engine is not the easiest engine to work on. Alright, yeah, and then obviously you should also replace the oil filter on the 10,000 Ks. I'll have links to spark plugs and the oil filters down below. Okay, what's next? Check the coolant and restore the coolant levels if necessary. Okay, that's quite self-explanatory. Check the valve clearance. So this I haven't done myself. I don't feel comfortable opening up and checking that. So this is something I would probably send to a shop for them to check. If you feel comfortable to do it, you're welcome. But yeah, that's up to you. Alright, drain the outlet hose from the air filter box. This can be found on the bottom right hand below the battery. You don't need to remove panels. There's just a little rubber hose out there that you can just remove. The stop on the end, and leave it to drain overnight preferably, and get some of that oil out. Alright, next up is check clutch play if necessary. This I replace quite often, not replace but adjust quite often, because I do a lot of town driving. This gets worn out quite quickly and can be a nuisance. Alright, next up is check wheel spoke tension. You can also use a small spanner for this, but you get special tools. You can check that. Next is examine the brake pads. I'd suggest getting proper brake pads, as the cheap ones are usually not worth it. They squeal, they leave brake dust, and just generally I prefer getting brake pads from the dealership itself. Next is front and rear brake fluids. Yeah, I would suggest checking this more often than 10,000 Ks, as bleeding the system on these bikes is not the most user-friendly way of doing it. So check it regularly. Just make a note of it, that every time you get on the bike, just glance over it. That the front ones are a little harder to check, but still do it at least every 1,000 Ks. Next is check if necessary, replace chain, sprocket, chain guide, rollers and pinions. Yeah, these two go hand in hand. I would suggest lubricating them at least every 1000 Ks and not every 10,000, not just on services. Also, the tension and the lubrication should be done simultaneously. It's very important to check it for the life of your chain. Next is check the battery acid levels. I found that sealed unit on these bikes work better because it's a little bit of a nuisance getting in there, that it can be better to just get a sealed unit, as the non-sealed units have acid that you have to check, and because of the lean of the bike, on the side stands, the fluid, the acid actually comes out of the battery, which can cause damage. I mean, it's obvious that that's not desirable. So I suggest just getting sealed units. Alright, next up, check the center, the steering head bearings, and adjust or replace if necessary. This can be checked by lifting the front wheel and turning the steering wheel left and right. If you move the steering wheel left and right, and in the middle you feel there's a little bit of resistance, then your head bearing is probably worn out, and I would recommend replacing it. Grease the side stands and main stand. Grease the brake pedals, front and rear. Using the torque wrench, check that the bolts and nuts on the engine mountings, frame connections, exhaust system mounting, suspension levers are tightened. Alright, so for the tightening of the bolts, I would suggest you get like a decent wrench set. Torque bit socket, here's one on Amazon for about $15. These can come in very handy with a torque wrench, but you could also just get a set like this and tighten them by hand. Just feel that they're tight. That's not recommended, but not everybody has a torque wrench. With regard to the torque settings, you can find them at faq.f650.com. They've got a whole list of all the torque settings. They've even got more tables here. This is a really good site if you own one of these bikes, so I suggest checking them out. I've got the site down below. Okay, then lastly, here's just final checks that you can do. These are checks that you can check daily, or that you should check daily, especially if you ride the bike daily. I don't feel there's need to do it 10,000 Ks. You'll know if one of these things is not right. Okay, so yeah, there you have it. If you enjoy the video, give it a thumbs up. If you've got something to say, comment down below. Yeah, thanks for watching. Cheers.